Anne. Good evening, everyone. I think I know everybody here, but my name is Emily. I'm one of the co-founders and heads of school. Me llamo Emily y yo soy una directora de la escuela. And I am very excited to see many of you, first of all, but two, to welcome Gabi Netter to our community as our incoming director of our K-5 elementary school program. So I'm not doing a lot of the talking tonight. This is really an opportunity to introduce her to you all.
Buenas noches a todos, yo conozco a todo el mundo aquí. Estoy muy emocionada de verlos a todos antes que nada, y pues este momento es para dar la bienvenida a Gabi como nuestra directora del programa de kinder a quinto grado. Es una oportunidad para presentársela ante todos ustedes.
Thanks, Emily. And hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and to get to the opportunity to meet many of you. This is going to be pretty informal. I'll share a little bit, but then it's really an opportunity for you all to ask questions. And I'd love to ask some questions of all of you as well. A little bit about me. Some of this I shared in my video if you had the chance to watch it. So apologies for any repeating information. Also, apologies for my voice. I am recovering from COVID at the moment, so I've got my hot water here, and might break out into some coughing at some point. So thanks in advance for bearing with me. I grew up in San Diego, and I said this in my video, but I think my story really starts with my parents' story, and I'm realizing I'm probably talking too much for Alan to translate. So I'm gonna pause there and then I'll pick it back up.
Gracias, Emilia. Hola a todos. Estoy muy emocionada de estar aquí, de tener la oportunidad de conocer a muchos de ustedes. Esto va a ser algo informal. Es más bien también un momento para que ustedes puedan hacerme preguntas, y yo también pues me encantaría poder hacerles algunas preguntas. Les voy a compartir algo acerca de mí. No sé si algunos vieron un video que ya había enviado, pero quizás se repita algo de la información. Les pido una disculpa por la voz que tengo porque me estoy recuperando de COVID. Así que aquí tengo un poco de agua caliente y es posible que tosa o algo. Así que bueno, gracias por entender esto. Bueno, pues yo crecí en San Diego y mi historia comienza con la historia de mis padres. Así que bueno, voy a parar para que el intérprete pueda hacer su trabajo.
So my parents immigrated to San Diego from Brazil. Our family is Jewish, and so there was one generation on one side who actually was born in Brazil, and a couple generations on the other side, but they immigrated to Brazil from different parts of Europe, and then my parents came here. So I grew up speaking Portuguese as a first language, had in some ways, a classic child of immigrants experience where education is really held up front and center, and being Jewish as well, and having our family history be impacted by that. My parents always said, education is the one thing you can always take with you no matter where you have to go. So grew up in a home where education and service were really important. Both my parents are therapists and work with lower income individuals. And so through that, came to really develop a love and a focus on education.
Bueno, pues mis padres inmigraron de San Diego, de Brasil, y también nuestra familia es judía, así que tenemos por parte de una generación de que nacieron en Brasil y por parte de otras generaciones eran de Europa y inmigraron a Brasil. Yo crecí hablando portugués y también siendo judía y con toda la historia de nuestros padres. Mis papás siempre dijeron que la educación es algo que uno lo puede llevar a donde sea que vaya. Y pues crecí en un hogar en donde la educación y el servicio era bastante importante. Ambos de mis padres eran terapeutas que estaban trabajando con gente de bajos ingresos, y desde ahí yo empecé a desarrollar este amor por la educación.
So in college, I studied political science and psychology, was interested in education policy, and thought that I'd take a few years and get a little experience on the ground. I did Teach for America, really with the intent of then, pivoting into policy. But what I found was that I really, really loved it on the ground, and in particular, the opportunity to have relationships with kids and with families was just tremendously fulfilling, and never made that pivot back to policy, and still don't intend to, because those relationships are really, I think, what makes this work very rewarding.
En la universidad yo estudié ciencias políticas y psicología y me interesé también bastante por las políticas educativas, y yo en un momento pues pensé conseguir algo de experiencia de campo y trabajé en el principio en Teach for America, en un programa de educación, y después pensaba en que iba a dar el giro hacia la política. Sin embargo, descubrí que el amor profundo que yo tenía era para el trabajo de campo y establecer relaciones con los niños y sus familias, porque eso para mí siempre ha sido muy gratificante. Y ya desde ahí nunca regresé a la parte de la política, porque para mí pues, el desarrollo de las relaciones fue mucho más importante.
So I taught third and fourth grades, which I love, and then had the opportunity to be a founding assistant principal of a new school, and found that in addition to really enjoying getting to work directly with students, I really loved getting to support adults in their work with students, and loved the work of coaching and supporting educators. And after a few years of doing that, had the opportunity to move into the central office of the charter network that I was working for, where I was coaching principals and assistant principals from across the network, as we worked to take the practices that our most successful schools were using and spread those and support our schools that we found that were struggling.
Yo fui maestra de tercer y cuarto grado, lo cual me encantó bastante, y después tuve la oportunidad de ser una asistente de la directora en una escuela nueva, y también pues me di cuenta que tenía bastante pasión por apoyar a los adultos en su trabajo con los estudiantes. Me encanta impartir sesiones de coaching y apoyar a los educadores, y después de un par de años de eso, yo pasé a la oficina central de una red de charter en donde trabajaba, en donde yo brindaba sesiones de entrenamiento, de coaching a los directores y los asistentes directores, y fuimos apoyando ahí a las escuelas que determinamos que estaban batallando bastante.
And from there, took a break to go to graduate school, and at that point realized that I had been with one organization of schools for many years, really focused on one way of doing school, and I knew that there was a lot more out there. And so that led me to New Schools Venture Fund, the organization that I was working with most recently, which funds schools across the country, including New School of San Francisco. They find education entrepreneurs who have a vision for a new innovative school. And so I was helping to support those school founders as they went from having a vision and idea all the way through the first 3 years of their school's founding. And so was able to visit really amazing schools all over the country, to really have my worldview of what school can be expanded and blown up in really exciting ways. And through that, New School of San Francisco was already on my radar. And when I heard about this position, found that it was a no-brainer.
Desde ahí me tomé después un descanso para ir a realizar la maestría, y ahí fue donde me di cuenta que durante muchos años le había dedicado tanto tiempo solamente a una organización que se enfocaba en solo una manera de realizar la educación, y eso me llevó a darme cuenta, me llevó con New School Venture Fund, que es una organización que les proporciona financiamiento a las escuelas, y que incluida New School of San Francisco, ellos encuentran escuelas innovadoras y yo estaba ayudando a apoyar a los fundadores de ese proyecto, desde la visión desde la visión y la idea hasta la construcción de la escuela. Así que yo visité escuelas increíbles de todo el país y a través de todo el país, y yo veía qué escuelas se podía expandir, y ya desde ese punto yo ya sabía de New School of San Francisco, así que cuando me enteré de este puesto vacante, pues no la dudé ni un segundo.
And I'll talk in a second about what really excites me, excuse me, about the school and what I've learned so far. But before that, just, on a personal note, I just moved to North Beach with my husband. We got married in February. We're a 10-minute walk from the school, which is amazing. And for the last 9 months prior to this, we took advantage of both working remotely at the time and traveled around the country. We're digital nomads, had the opportunity to live all over the place. I had been in the Bay since 2010 prior to that. So did a little adventuring, and I'm really excited to be rooting myself here now in this community.
En unos momentos voy a compartir qué fue lo que realmente me emocionó acerca de la escuela y lo que he aprendido hasta ahora. Y solamente una nota personal, que yo y mi esposo nos acabamos de mudar a North Beach, que está como a 10 minutos caminando de la escuela. Y los 9 meses antes aprovechamos el trabajo remoto y viajamos en el país como nómadas digitales. Y bueno, yo desde el 2010 que no estaba en el área de la bahía. Así que pues hicimos muchas aventuras y ahora estamos emocionados por estar aquí en esta comunidad.
So I was drawn to New School for so many reasons. But first and foremost, I think the model, the commitment to inquiry-based learning, and to getting students excited about learning and learning how to learn. So often you see the joy of learning sort of leaving kids as they progress. They skip off to kindergarten and then they're in high school just tearing their hair out. And everything I know about New School is that that's not the case here. So the real encouragement of a love of learning, the commitment to diversity, and to cultivating a diverse community with strong relationships that deeply care about one another across lines of difference, and the amazing team. I've known a few folks over the years who've worked here and just had the most amazing things to say, and that has definitely proven true so far.
Me atrajo bastante la idea de formar parte de New School por muchas razones. Primero, por el modelo que tienen del compromiso con el aprendizaje basado en preguntas y de hacer que los estudiantes se entusiasmen con el aprendizaje. A veces uno puede ver esa alegría que tienen los estudiantes, ¿no? A medida que van progresando, ¿no? Desde el kinder hasta la prepa. Y bueno, todo lo que sea acerca de New School, de alentar y el amor por el aprendizaje, también la diversidad, cultivarla como una comunidad diversa con relaciones sólidas, y pues el equipo increíble en New School. Algunas personas las he conocido durante varios años y solamente tengo cosas increíbles que decir de todos ellos.
My priority here, so first of all, I should say it's a real gift to have this time at the end of this school year where I really just get to absorb and learn and be on a listening tour to understand the current kind of state of the school, and take all of that and use it to plan for the future. And I've learned so much already, even in this brief time. I really see a community that deeply cares about serving the whole student, that cares about partnering with all different kinds of stakeholders. I see folks are tired. I think the team has been really running themselves ragged in what's been a really challenging few years. I hear a real desire to recommit to some of the things that make New School really special, and I hear some of the challenges that have gotten in the way of that in the last few years. So I'm soaking all of that up, and you all are a big part of that. I'm really just eager to hear what's on your minds. And of course, I'm here to answer any questions as well. So I have some specific questions, but I'll first open it up open-ended to what questions or thoughts you all have to share.
Bueno, primero que nada me siento bastante agradecido por tener este tiempo al final del año para absorber y aprender lo más que pueda y entender el estado actual de la escuela y de esa forma planificar para el futuro. Ya en este corto tiempo he aprendido bastante. Realmente veo una comunidad que se interesa profundamente en atender a todos los estudiantes, en asociarse con diferentes tipos de partes interesadas. Y bueno, pues también he notado que muchas personas están muy cansadas y el equipo, la escuela, todo el mundo ha tenido años, los últimos par de años han sido muy desafiantes, bastante difíciles. Y bueno, pues también está el compromiso de hacer las cosas como que hacían que New School sea especial. Y bueno, estoy yo aprendiendo acerca de todo esto. Y bueno, por otra parte me interesa saber qué es lo que ustedes piensan y responder cualquier pregunta que puedan tener. Así que si tienen alguna pregunta específica, primero me gustaría que las realizaran o algún comentario que tengan.
So yeah, I'll go ahead and open it up to anyone with burning thoughts or questions. And then if not, I can chime in with some specific guidance for our conversation, but I'll open it up first.
Bueno, pues nuevamente quiero abrir aquí el piso para que si alguna persona tiene alguna pregunta o algo que quiera compartir, si no, bueno, pues yo voy a orientar las preguntas.
Hi, Gabi. This is Brad Banks.
Hello.
Hi. First of all, I want to welcome you to New School, extend a warm welcome. I am curious about your thoughts on inquiry and any type of ideas that you may have, knowing what you know, which may be, partial about New School. Any visions and ideas that you have about inquiry model and teaching and new curriculum surrounding inquiry.
Yeah.
Brad, can I jump in too? As people are saying
Sure.
hi and asking questions, will you just say who your children are too and what grades as Gabi starts to put the whole community together?
Absolutely. Sorry about that. So I have Valentine, she's a 3rd grader, and then Jet, who's a 2nd grader, and then an incoming kindergartner, Jubilee, in the fall.
Awesome. Thank you for that. It's going to take me a while to match names, adult names to kid names to faces. So I may ask you the same question multiple times. Yeah, so I am, as I said, incredibly excited about inquiry. I'm also new to inquiry. So I am, one of the other things I'm doing in these weeks that I have before the start of the new school year is going on my own inquiry arc about inquiry, which is pretty cool. So I am spending lots of time in conversation with staff, in classrooms, walking hallways, looking through materials, asking questions about those, and generating more questions as I learn, all with the goal of then putting together all of this learning into a sort of exposition, a document that captures what inquiry has looked like at New School of San Francisco, and folks across the school's thoughts on what it can look like. And I'll be able to sort of present that out. That'll be something that will be a living, breathing thing that we can sort of adapt as new ideas come into the school. So that's been really fun so far. I'm really excited about it. I will say, on a fundamental level, I think I really view inquiry as an orientation and a way of approaching learning. It doesn't live just in one moment, but ideally is really interdisciplinary, is spanning subjects. I think sometimes it can be reduced to, like, folks think it's synonymous with science or with social studies, and certainly it has a big place there. But there's no reason why all subjects can't be taught with that kind of orientation, and all sort of rolling up to a bigger essential question. So that's one thing that I'm excited to kind of have an eye on. I know it sounds like that was pretty challenging with virtual learning. And so taking, what lessons have been learned across the school from that time, and seeing how we can kind of reground things in that bigger picture, and that vision, while again, being realistic about the challenges that are still present for many students. So Brad, I don't know how satisfying of an answer that is. I'll get back to you, in a few months as I'm further along in my journey. But yeah, really curious as well, if you all have thoughts about the inquiry part of the model, how that has evolved, where it's at right now. Also would love your input.
Thanks, Gabby. Appreciate that, and welcome again.
Thank you.
Alon, that was a lot. But
Oh, sorry.
A minute to...
It's okay. Yo soy el padre, soy Brad, el padre de 3 niños, uno que está en 3er grado, otro de 2º grado y otro que va a entrar a kinder. Y bueno, primero que darte la bienvenida a New School y extenderte una cálida bienvenida. Y solo tenía curiosidad acerca de lo que piensas tú del modelo de preguntas y alguna visión que tengas o idea acerca del modelo de preguntas y sobre la enseñanza y los nuevos planes de estudio. Y lo que contestó Gabi es que pues ella es nueva con soy nueva con este tipo de modelo, y una de las cosas que he estado haciendo es pasar mucho tiempo en conversaciones con los maestros, en los salones de clases, caminando por los pasillos, viendo materiales, realizando preguntas, generando más preguntas a medida que voy avanzando y bueno, voy registrando todo esto en un documento que va con la intención de entender cómo es este modelo en New School of San Francisco, y eso pues más adelante ya podré presentarlo y a medida podemos ir realizando adaptaciones a medida que surjan nuevas ideas. Todo esto ha sido muy divertido para mí y bueno, pues yo veo en el modelo de preguntas como algo interdisciplinario, que abarca varios temas. Y bueno, yo sé que hay algunas personas que piensan que puede ser sinónimo con la ciencia. Y bueno, por otra parte también sé que ha habido bastantes desafíos con el aprendizaje virtual y tenemos que ver cómo podemos reacomodar las cosas a medida que somos realistas acerca de los desafíos que todavía están presentes para muchos estudiantes. Así que bueno, para finalizar esto, pues yo creo que a medida que avance yo con mi aprendizaje podré tener ya una respuesta mucho más sólida.
Alon, please interrupt me if I go too long again. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries.
Any other thoughts or questions?
¿Alguna otra pregunta o comentario?
I have one, and feel a little outrageous because I am the wife to Brad and mother to Jet, Valentine, and incoming Jubilee. Welcome, Gabi. We're thrilled to meet you. I'd love to know what you see as your priorities in the first, 3 months, 6 months, year for your role.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I'm first and foremost focused on priorities for the first 45 days. I think you often hear in the business world, right, first 90 days. We're on an even shorter timeline than that. But in the first 45 days, I'm focused first on relationships, getting to know staff, students, families. And 1, because relationships matter. 2, because I think this work is best done. I mean, it really can only be done in relationship. And so setting ourselves up for success by laying that groundwork together. And 3rd, because I just have so much to learn, again, going back to that kind of listening tour. So that's priority 1 for this time. Priority 2 is really getting up to speed on New School's teaching and learning, to Brad's point about inquiry, and some of what I was sharing earlier. Really getting my hands around, what does everything from conferences that y'all are about to have, to teacher coaching, to lesson planning, to behavior support systems, like all the things that make the school tick. Really just getting a grasp of what that all looks like. I will pause there for translation.
Yo tengo otra pregunta. Siento que esto es un poco curioso porque yo soy la esposa de Brad y le quiero dar la bienvenida a Gaby. Estamos encantados de conocerte y solamente quería preguntarte cuáles son tus prioridades en los primeros meses y 6 meses y al pasar el primer año. Y la respuesta de Gaby es: excelente pregunta. Las primeras prioridades las establecí para los primeros 45 días y todo esto va a estar enfocado en las relaciones, en conocer al personal, los estudiantes, a las familias, porque las relaciones son bastante importantes y porque este trabajo solo se puede hacer a través de relaciones. Y tercero, porque también tengo mucho que aprender. Esa es mi prioridad número 1. Y número 2 es pues pasar más tiempo entendiendo el modelo de enseñanza y de aprendizaje de New School of San Francisco y pues entender que acerca de todo, ¿no? Desde las conferencias hasta el coaching de las capacitaciones de los maestros, la planificación de lecciones, hasta los sistemas de apoyo de comportamiento.
The third priority for right now is helping with some really sort of immediate needs that are going to set us up for success in the fall. So hiring, for example, and participating in the process to take the school-wide priorities that have been set and the teacher grade level teams priorities that they're setting on individual teams, and marrying those to ultimately have a very clear set of K-5 school priorities, which is to say, I don't have those priorities yet for the fall because it's a process and it involves all that learning and all those conversations. But the setting of those priorities is ultimately another priority for this initial period.
Y la tercera prioridad es ayudar con las necesidades inmediatas que nos van a preparar para tener éxito. Por ejemplo, la contratación y participar en el proceso de tomar las prioridades de toda la escuela y junto con el equipo de maestros por nivel de grado y bueno, pues ponernos de acuerdo todo para que tengamos un conjunto bastante establecido de prioridades de la escuela de kinder a 5º grado. Y bueno, pues todo esto es un proceso, entonces todavía no están esas prioridades porque toma un poco de tiempo y bueno, ahorita nos vamos a preparar para que las podamos establecer.
I think there was a hand raised from Riva.
Creo que había una mano levantada de Riva.
We can give Riva a sec. Are there others?
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
Hi. Am I here now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, all sorts of technical difficulties. Hi, Gabi. It's so nice to meet you. I'm Riva, mom to Ren. She's in 2nd grade. And my question is piggybacking a bit off Sonia's. I'm curious to hear, and maybe now is the time, or maybe once you've been here for a while and you're settled, there's another time opportunity for a share out. But I'm curious to hear your perspective on ways that the school, you mentioned how this staff is tired and has worked so hard for so long getting us through the pandemic and has done an amazing job. And I'm curious to hear about the ways where we've had to sort of take a step back and ways that you plan to approach that and bring us back to where we want to be. Yeah, So that's my question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I wish I had a magic bullet answer. But I do think there are some things that we can do. One is rest, first and foremost. Folks taking that time away over the summer for self-care, being with their families and so on. I think regrounding in the vision together and getting re-inspired. I think inspiration can sometimes be undervalued, but there's real kind of power in collectively stepping back and saying, what is it that we're trying to do here? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What are some examples? And so doing that work of stepping back, I think it perhaps sounds obvious, but when you're grounded in the vision, that really hard work feels like it's for a purpose, and clarity on that purpose together, I think, is important. I think, from there, different folks, from what I'm hearing, like different folks really need different things, right? Some people really want to spend time like looking back at the last few years and grappling with it and taking meaning from it and sitting with it. And for other folks, that sounds really painful and not at all motivating. And so I think, how do we collectively help folks understand, like introspectively, what is it that they personally need? Because that stuff in and of itself can be hard. None of us have been through these pandemic times before. So how do we first just get in touch with ourselves and understand what we might need to move forward? And then, what can we all do collectively to help each person get what they need? I'm a big believer in this exercise called a winning formula, where you think about a time when you really were thriving. It can be, a particular moment even, or a period of time. And you kind of unpack, what was it that made you thrive in that time? And as you talk through that scenario, you start to land on some factors. So I can give some examples for me. I really thrive. I already mentioned relationships, when I feel my relationships are strong, when there's complexity to be tackled, when I feel prepared. I do not like feeling unprepared, right? So these all came from me unpacking a specific scenario where I was like really in flow state at my best. And then armed with those, that formula, I can say to my manager, to Emily, to any of you, hey, I am not thriving right now. And I know it's because these 3 parts of my formula are out of whack. Here's what I think I can do to get them back on track. Here's what you might do to help me get back on track with them. And so just that exercise so that you could articulate what you need to be at your best, and then use that, excuse me, to name when those conditions are or are not present, I think can be really powerful. Again, not a silver bullet, but those are the kinds of things that I think we can do as a team going into the year to help build our self-awareness, and prepare for when things inevitably do feel hard again.
Wow, ya creo que ya me pueden escuchar. Hola Gaby, qué gusto conocerte. Soy Riva, mamá de Bren de segundo grado. Mi pregunta es, tengo curiosidad de saber sobre tu perspectiva. Yo sé que mencionaste que el personal y todos están cansados por toda la pandemia y han hecho un increíble trabajo en ayudarnos. Y tengo curiosidad acerca de las formas en las que podemos dar como pasos hacia atrás y saber en qué punto queremos estar. Y la respuesta fue, es una excelente pregunta, me gustaría tener una bolita mágica para responder así con certitud. Y yo pienso que una de las cosas que podemos hacer es descansar, tomar tiempo en el verano para el autocuidado, estar con nuestras familias y todo. Yo pienso que volver a buscar inspiración. A veces pienso que la inspiración puede ser infravalorada, porque yo creo que sí hay un poder fuerte en dar pasos hacia atrás y en el realizar ese trabajo. A veces se puede encontrar claridad y propósito. Yo sé que hay diferentes personas que necesitan cosas diferentes. Algunos quieren ver el pasado, los últimos años, y para otros eso puede sonar pues bastante fuerte y nada motivador. Ninguno de nosotros había pasado por una pandemia, así que lo que me pregunto es cómo podemos volver a estar en contacto con nosotros mismos, qué podemos hacer nosotros juntos, colectivamente. Yo creo bastante en algo que le llaman la fórmula del ganador, en donde uno piensa acerca de algún momento o periodo de la vida en donde a uno le iba bastante bien, donde estaba encantado con la vida y bueno, pensar en ese momento y como desempacar las memorias de qué fue lo que hacía que uno la pasara tan bien, que prosperara tanto, que estuviera emocionado y bueno, a medida que uno va caminando, recordando ese escenario, puede ir descubriendo cosas que hacían que uno prosperara. Yo, por ejemplo, prospero bastante cuando las relaciones que tengo son bastante buenas, cuando hay complejidades que se necesitan abordar. Y bueno, todo eso surgió cuando yo accedí a esos recuerdos y pude acordarme todos esos elementos que hacen que yo esté en ese estado de ánimo y prosperando. Y con esa fórmula yo, por ejemplo, puedo llegar con alguien como Emily y decirle, oye, pues yo sé que yo no estoy, ahorita no me está yendo muy bien, no estoy prosperando porque hay tres partes de mi fórmula o ciertas cosas que necesito arreglar o mejorar. Entonces, de eso se trata, yo creo, de articular lo que uno necesita. Creo que puede ser un ejercicio bastante poderoso, bastante útil y creo que eso lo podemos hacer todos nosotros como equipo.
The other thing I'll add is, I think what I spoke to so far is on a very individual level, but there's also just a systemic level. We can't put all the responsibility on individuals to solve what is truly a set of systemic challenges. And so while none of us can individually change the system, I do think there are a set of questions we can be asking ourselves, like what is the role of an educator? What is the role of a school? How can we reimagine what's possible? How can we reimagine the supports that we're offering? And, just tackling some of those big picture questions. What's going on underneath the surface? How is information flowing? How does identity play into all of this? What oppressive systems are at play? I think those all need to be happening in parallel to that individual work that I described.
Otra cosa que yo pienso que hasta ahora yo hablé de un nivel bastante individual, pero también se encuentra el nivel sistémico, porque uno no se le puede poner tampoco toda la responsabilidad a los individuos. Si bien es cierto que ninguno de estos puede cambiar el sistema, lo que sí podemos hacer es realizar preguntas como cuál es el rol de un educador y de la escuela, cómo podemos reimaginar, recrear los apoyos que ofrecemos, es abordar esas preguntas de la imagen más grande y cómo es que eso está fluyendo, cómo está jugando las cuestiones de la identidad o qué sistemas opresivos están en juego.
Other questions?
¿Hay alguna otra pregunta?
Hi, it's Brad again. I just have one small question, and it might be just some early ideas that you might have for how to objectively measure the success of the academics at New School. How will you know what you're doing is delivering results?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm a big believer in an expanded definition of student success. So that means, traditionally schools are, not so traditionally, but in the last few decades, schools are measured on their academic outcomes as measured by tests, assessments. I believe that measuring academic results is definitely important. I also believe in measuring socio-emotional outcomes, cultural and climate outcomes, family satisfaction, student satisfaction. I think it's important that we define success in a number of ways because a school is much more than just a test-taking machine. And so on the academic side, still getting to know, the suite of assessments that New School currently uses. But I know, things like F&P, where we can, or map where we can see student growth over the course of the year. And I think importantly are assessing throughout the year so that we have a sense of where students are at any given moment and are using that data to inform each teacher giving that student what it is that they need to continue advancing. Importantly with that, I think keeping an eye on different demographic groups across the school and what kind of academic outcomes we're seeing across groups. Ideally, there are no gaps between students from different groups, and in particular, no predictable gaps that we see in our broader society related to the opportunity gap. So keeping a really tight eye on those, I think ideally we will see any gaps that currently exist shrink over time. That would be a huge measure of success. And then on the social emotional side, New School gives a student survey about students' own perceptions of their social, social emotional development. In addition to observational data that staff are always collecting as they watch students interact with one another and so on, I think it's important that that data not be used in a way where students feel like they're being tested somehow, right? It's okay for students to not report highly on a given social emotional indicator. We want students to be honest about how they view themselves, how they view their interactions with their peers and so on. So for that, I would say success, doesn't look like growth necessarily, but it looks like students being willing to be open about their experiences, students feeling invested in collectively improving that experience where there are areas where it needs to be improved, students really celebrating where the experience is already really strong. And I think all stakeholders, families, staff, being clear on what aspects of the school and what aspects of the student experience are things to be really proud of, and then where there's kind of work collectively to be done. I think if, by the end of next year, this time next year, we're saying like, wow, I can ask any one of you or any staff member or any kid, and we can all kind of tell the story of the year. Like we were struggling when it came to our self-awareness early in the year, and we really worked on it in these ways, and here's how we've seen ourselves improve. Like that would be a measure of success for me. And then of course, I want to see you all continue to put your kids, keep your kids there. Student retention is a powerful indicator of family satisfaction. I imagine we give some kind of family satisfaction survey as well. So that's always useful data. So, at the end of the day, I want to see that kids are learning, that kids are happy, that kids feel safe, that kids feel a sense of belonging, and that we're all clear on the direction that we're rowing in as kind of one big team.
Hola, soy Bea otra vez. Una preguntita más. ¿Tendrás alguna idea ahorita en este momento acerca de cómo se podrá medir de manera objetiva el éxito de las materias de lo académico en New School? ¿Y cómo sabías tú eso y qué tipo de resultados entregarías? Y la respuesta fue, yo soy una gran creyente en la definición ampliada del éxito de los estudiantes, porque tradicionalmente las escuelas miden el éxito en resultados académicos, según lo determinan las evaluaciones o los exámenes. Yo creo que es muy importante también medir otro tipo de resultados como la satisfacción de las familias, la satisfacción de los estudiantes. Creo que debemos definir el éxito en varias maneras porque la escuela está conformada por más que solo los exámenes. Y en el lado académico, en aprender sobre las evaluaciones, yo, por ejemplo, sé acerca de MAP, que es un sistema que podemos ver el crecimiento del estudiante a través del año. Y sé que se hacen varias evaluaciones a través del año y pues puedo usar esos datos para yo para ciertos estudiantes específicos y saber así qué es lo que ellos necesitan para seguir avanzando. Y bueno, también voy a mantener bastante atención en los diferentes grupos demográficos en los resultados, porque idealmente no debería haber brechas entre los estudiantes de distintos grupos y ninguna brecha predecible. Y idealmente, pues si hay alguna brecha, el objetivo sería que esa se disminuya. Eso sería un gran indicador de éxito. Y en la parte socioemocional, pues con las encuestas de los estudiantes podemos saber su perspectiva en torno al socioemocional, desarrollo socioemocional, y además de todos los datos de observaciones que realiza el personal. Yo pienso que es importante que los datos no se usen siempre de una manera que el estudiante sienta que le están haciendo exámenes o pruebas, y bueno, pues yo pienso que también el estudiante es que el éxito se trata acerca de que los estudiantes se sientan abiertos sobre sus experiencias y que se sientan comprometidos en mejorar, y que también sepan celebrar cuando las experiencias sean bastante buenas, y que todas las partes interesadas, las familias, el personal estemos todos en el mismo canal acerca de los aspectos de la escuela y de la experiencia de los estudiantes y las cosas que nos hacen orgullosos, así como el trabajo que se necesita realizar. Por último, pienso que la retención de los estudiantes es otro indicador muy importante, y bueno, al igual que las encuestas de satisfacción, y yo lo que quiero pues es que los niños se sientan contentos, seguros, y que tengan un sentido de pertenencia claros.
Looks like Margaret, you have your hand up?
Hi, yes. Welcome, Gabby. We're really excited that you're here. My question was, my name is Margaret, and I have a second grader named Watson and a fifth grader named Aubrey. My question to you is kind of thinking about parents being partners in the process of developing our children and educating our children. What, if you could have this ideal parent community, what would that look like to you?
It's funny. That was one of the questions I was hoping to ask you all as well. It's a great question. So I think first, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but just that relationships are strong. That, I feel, this leadership team feels, the staff feels, and you feel like we can go directly to one another, and that we do go directly to one another frequently, to celebrate, to share, to hash through things when they're not going well, to troubleshoot. I think just feeling like a team where we're aligned on the vision is of what we're trying to achieve together, and know that, well, at times we might agree about the path there, and at times we might disagree. We are all working together in service of these kids who we all just, adore and want the best for. So I think first, just that strong relationship and strong alignment. I think, you all are your kids' first teachers. And we, as a school team, need your support when it comes to knowing your kid really well, to getting them where they need to go, whatever their individual goals may be. So having you all as champions for them, as partners in that journey, I think is really important. I have already seen in my short time here the way that parents really pitch in and contribute to the joy and the fun and the magic of the school. We have teams of folks helping with field day, and I heard about teams of parents helping with staff appreciation, like that kind of stuff goes such a long way in, not only creating an amazing experience for kids, but also what we were talking about earlier with staff being tired. That teaming up makes an incredible difference as well. And, I think sort of going back to what I was saying about like the reimagining, re-envisioning, recommitting to some of the new school magic, being partners in that as well. And, you know, coming to the spaces where there are opportunities to do that, creating your own spaces. And finally, I'll just say, you know, you all are such a resource to one another. And so parents engaging other parents, supporting one another. I think there's incredible opportunity there as well. And continuing to build the community again across lines of difference, given the beautiful diversity that we have. I think, you know, working together to bridge some of those divides and strengthen relationships is part of my vision as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Did we lose Alan? We lost him. I apologize. My Spanish is, I speak Spanish, but not enough to translate everything I just said. Oh, he's back. There he is. Alan, can you hear us?
Oh, hello. My internet, I'm sorry. Can you hear me fine over there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so yo soy Margaret, soy mamá de un estudiante de segundo grado, otro de quinto grado, y quería darte la bienvenida. Estamos muy emocionadas, Gaby, de tenerte aquí. Mi pregunta es, al pensar acerca de los
Alon, I wonder if we do this. You're kind of coming in and out. What if we finish off? We've only got five more minutes in English, and then we'll do the last 5 minutes. You and I'll send you the clip and we can do it, tack on the last 5 minutes in Spanish.
Is there a final question? Well, maybe I'll throw it. Oh, Lon, you're cutting in and out. I'm gonna throw out a question. If we have some brave souls who would be willing to answer, I am curious for either. I'll give 3 options. One thing that makes you proud to be part of the New School community. One worry or concern that you have when you think about the year ahead, or one hope that you have, sort of a rosebud thorn protocol.
We can also save the chat too, if folks feel more comfortable putting it in the chat. But hearing voices is always nice.
And I'll just repeat it because it was a lot. So either one thing you're proud about being part of the New School community about, one worry or concern you have, or one hope that you have.
I'll give one. I'll give that a go. I am hopeful and excited to see what inquiry can look like next year, to kind of tack on to Brad's first question. I know that our teachers have put their heart and soul into teaching this year. And I think inquiry has not played very nicely with pandemic protocols. So as that starts to open up, I'm just really excited to start seeing that, because there's so many things that make the New School magic. But for me, a big piece of that is the inquiry. So I'm really excited for that. And I just want to say, you know, from your background and everything you've been saying, it's so exciting to hear more about you. And I'm so delighted that you'll be joining the team. So Thank you so much and welcome, welcome.
Thank you. We have time for at least one more person. Go ahead, Kathy.
I hope my son can go from staying in school on a regular basis to actually being really excited about going to school on a regular basis. And that is not a comment on the school because he's come a long way from where he was, but that's my hope generally. And the school's been amazing, so.
Yeah. Do one more. Go ahead, Ed.
Just to kind of piggyback off that a little bit, I wanted to comment that on a positive. My son is Liam. He's in 3rd grade. He had COVID about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that, and he could not wait to get back to school. So I think that that's kind of a comment on how awesome this school is. Like he was really bummed to be stuck. It was really dying to get that negative test back. So new school magic, we love you.
That is a great note to end on. Alon, are you back with us?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, we can hear you. I'll let you translate that last piece before we go.
Tengo curiosidad, una cosa que, bueno, lo que dijo Cristi primero es, yo pienso que el modelo de preguntas pues no ha ido bien con todo esto de los protocolos de la pandemia y simplemente me da bastante emoción de ver eso, porque para mí el modelo de preguntas es una gran parte de la magia de New School. Y de lo que comentas tú de tu perfil y algo que me emociona bastante escuchar de ti, pues estamos también encantados de que estés uniendo al equipo y muchas gracias, te damos la bienvenida. Y yo espero que mi hijo llegue al punto de estar tan emocionado de una forma tan regular para ir a la escuela. Esa es la esperanza que yo tengo y New School ha sido increíble. Y el último comentario fue, yo soy mamá de un estudiante de ese grado, tuvo COVID y pues no había podido regresar a la escuela y él estaba bastante triste porque no puede regresar a la escuela. Yo creo que eso demuestra bastante lo increíble que es esta escuela, que mi hijo pues, se sentía triste por no poder regresar, así que nosotros adoramos la magia de New School.
I know we're a minute over. I just want to say thank you all so much for making the time to be here during your evening. It's wonderful to get to start to know you a little bit, and looking forward to much more. I will hopefully be back on campus definitely next week, if not later this week, hoping for that negative test to come through. So would love to see you there, and feel free, of course, to email me at any time. I'm happy to continue the conversations.
Bueno, pues le quiero dar las gracias a todos por estar aquí. Fue realmente maravilloso conocerles un poco y estoy muy emocionada por conocerlos más y espero que pueda regresar al campus tan pronto como la próxima semana en cuanto tenga mi resultado de prueba negativo de COVID, y me encanta verlos y pues no duden tampoco en mandarme un correo electrónico y con mucho gusto estaremos en contacto.
All right, that is it from us. Take care. Have a good night.